On today's show, how do you know if you should even show livestock? Let's go!
To the Front, the show that answers questions for stock show families. Presented by TTF Nutrition, livestock supplements that get you to the front.
Welcome to the front. I'm Tony Morris, joined as always by the lovely and talented Thomas Gross. Thomas, you just got done with the state fair. Tell us all about your state fair experience.
Yeah, it was. We had a great time at the state fair. You know, we rolled straight from county fair right into barrow weekend or market weekend, I should say, because we had barrows and goats showing at the same time, and then we rolled right to gilts the next weekend after. But yeah, we had an awesome time down at state fair. We were blessed enough to have the champion landrace gilt last weekend at the Indiana State Fair, so we had an awesome time showing pigs, and an even better time with kind of friends that we had.
Yeah, I would imagine the highlight of the state fair is hard to top, just winning that landrace gilt banner.
Yeah, you know, and that was one of those goals that we had at the beginning of the year, was to hit the dirt. And I told Isaiah at the beginning of the year, that's a pretty ambitious goal. We should maybe make that a career goal. And I guess we were able to get it done in year one. So Dad's got some expectations to live up to as we continue the project in future years. But, you know, and that was awesome. And winning that was great, and being on the dirt and kind of having the fireworks go off and the pomp and circumstance around it, he really enjoyed, and we enjoyed that as a family. But I will tell you, for me, kind of the lasting memory that we're going to have is when they had those champion breed drives on Saturday night. You know, we had the once Will Hilton named Isaiah as the champion. One of his good friends, Lila Clausen, was standing about 4 or 5 feet behind him and absolutely wrapped him up in a bear hug and kind of celebrated with him before he even had a chance to shake Will's hand. And it was really incredible to watch. And it's one of those experiences where we talk about with our kids, you know, clap for others, and that was kind of that on full display there. And even though they ended up going reserve, you know, he beat her in that moment. She was ecstatic for him and kind of exemplified that clapping for others and being happy for others, even though she wasn't, she went reserve.
Yeah, I was on Walton for the champion, for all the breed champion drives that night. So I was kind of ringside and got to cheer for, I have to admit it, when the landrace came in, I certainly was cheering for old Stinky. And I saw that right away before he even had a chance to shake Will's hand, that Lila wrapped him up. So, I mean, just my hat's off to the Clausens. I mean, you could not have raised a better kid than Lila. I mean, that was just such an awesome experience to witness. And it was fun for me being buddies and being tight with old Stinky to get to call that live on Walton.
It was a blast. And I think it kind of made him even more excited for it, right? That he didn't have to wait 45 seconds to get out of the ring to get a hug from somebody. He got a bear hug and got surprised by it instantly. So it made it fun. But you know what? It's just a good reminder that we are in this for something a whole lot bigger than just winning. And we try to win every time we go out, right? And I'm not going to make excuses for trying to win. But at the same time, the real reason we're doing it is to raise our kids. And, you know, I think that was fully exemplified, that they're instilling values in their kids that are way more important than actually winning the livestock show. If you can win, great, but the values are a whole lot more important and stick around a whole lot longer than any of these banners that we have hanging around our house or that are going to collect dust here pretty quickly.
Yeah. We had a moment, probably my highlight of the state fair, and we had one barrow down there and a couple heifers down there the first weekend. And luckily for me, we did not exhibit the second weekend, so we actually got to take a little bit of a break. And I got this thing that sometimes happens at night we call sleep. I was able to get some of that. So
that sounds nice.
It is.
And are your feet dry? Because I think I have trench foot from my feet being wet for 3 weeks straight. So, you know.
Outside of the state fair, I will tell you, I'm in the area of Indiana that's got 14 inches of rain since Wednesday of last week. So no, our feet are not dry, nor is anything else. But yeah, relative to the state fair, we had those couple heifers down there. Those heifers were raised by a friend of mine, Bo T, who he and I went to college together, and we've been just really tight for a very long time. And I didn't have any help. I was supposed to have some help to get them ready, and we didn't end up having it. So, of course, I was down there. Bo jumped in to help us. And then my kids, who don't do a lot of fitting, kind of jumped in, and it was my wife was working on body here. My kids were doing front legs. at one point I look around and Bo's, helping Charlie and coaching her up on what to do and teaching her how to do a tail. And man, that was the most fun that I had during the state fair, was just kind of getting that heifer ready with the whole family, and kind of took a step back away from it and just realized it was a lot of fun just to kind of look up and see everybody working on the same project and doing it with our buddy Bo, who always dresses like he's late for Augusta, right? He does not dress like a cow fitter. So to see him in his, I forget if they were peach colored shorts that day, helping us get that one ready, and his loafers, was just a lot of fun for me. Heifer got along. She won her class and got a piece of her division, so that made it even better. But it was so much fun just to watch the kids and my wife and Bo all interact and get that heifer ready. So that was probably my shining star moment of the state fair. That, and the fact that I got us a golf cart to go between the cattle barn and the pig barn, made me dad of the year, apparently, according to my kids. So I was happy for that as well.
You're exactly right. And that's one of the fun things. I will tell you, we had a pretty difficult market weekend, especially in the pig ring, right? And we didn't have a great time in the ring, but man, our kids had a blast with their friends that were there still, and the families that we showed with, and we were penned near. And so that made it a whole lot more tolerable, right? And it was just a good reminder, there are things more important sometimes than winning for that day. And you guys got a piece of your division, and yet you still had fun with a good friend. And so both are great, but if I got to pick one, we're going to have a good time with some friends as well.
Yeah, I'm always up for the good time a lot more than whether or not. If I can't win, but I still get to have a good time, chances are I'm still pretty happy about that. So that was great. Indiana State Fair, luckily for us, though, has moved on, and we both get to rest. I will say before we move on, I am, and you are just on the edge of it as well. We are in the part of Indiana that has been hammered by these rains, and this flooding has been horrible. So anybody that's listening that's dealing with that, man, our hearts are out to you, because we're dealing with it just a little bit at my house, and it is awful. And it's raining right now. So, of course, it's not going to stop.
Well, I was worried it was going to dry out, and then we got a couple more inches of rain tonight. So we want to make sure that didn't happen. Hey, one other thing that I wanted to touch on that I think you and I had talked about and that you brought up, the great event that happened after the Gilt Show this weekend, that in-style sale where they were giving those kids a chance to sell those gilts that were out there, right? And so I know that, you kind of followed that event a little bit, but it was an awesome opportunity. If you were champion or reserve or maybe even top 5 in your breed, you got a chance to sell, and some of those kids got some good money for that.
Yeah, that's one thing I will tell you that's always bugged me about the Indiana State Fair compared to other state fairs we've been to or traveled around. And I spent a lot of time in Oklahoma, and you see what they do at OYE and Tulsa for those kids. The Indiana State Fair does not have a spotlight sale. And it absolutely drives me nuts that these kids, when they get to the culmination, I think, of what we all try to do in that case, aren't maybe more rewarded for it than what they are. And I realize that's not why we do it, but you talk to some of these kids that have got along and made the sale at OYE and their parents, and they talk about how that paid for part of their college education, right? And if we have the opportunity to do that, I think we need to take advantage. And I don't know who all was involved. I know Travis Platt. I don't know who all was on that committee that made that happen. But my hat's off to you for making that happen. It's a great opportunity for those kids. You had to make the sale. It wasn't an open invitation. So I think they took the top 3 of every breed, were offered a spot, and then they had a committee that selected a few others, particularly in the crossbreds. And you were offered a spot. It wasn't required. And then some of those things brought some incredible amounts of money, which good for them, good for those kids, good for the breeders that are making those purchases. And then, man, what that can do for the families that were fortunate enough. I mean, paying for colleges or any number of different things that, resources are required for. So I just think that's a step in the right direction. The other thing is the sale committee said that any proceeds they brought in above and beyond what it took to put on the sale, they donated back to the Money in the Dirt, which is for the market weekend. So all they're trying to do is make more money for the kids that are fortunate enough to have a chance in those deals. And I don't think that's ever a bad thing, right? If we can do something for the kids, it's never a bad thing. So congratulations to those guys, and thank you for putting that on.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like a great event. Unfortunately, I was too tired to make it over there, even though it was only 30 minutes from my house. But after 3 weeks of running, I watched online, though. You know what? Another great development here over the last 10 years, Walton webcasting, broadcasting things, and having these sale previews and things online, being able to bid online on these for some of these animals. Awesome developments that we've seen in our industry as well. Excellent. Hey, we've got a great question, couple of great questions here that revolve around making decisions with your family and deciding to show or not, and kind of some of the choices that every family goes through. So I think this is an awesome one here from Hannah. She said, our kids love sports and animals, but it's all we can do to participate in everything. We can't do it all the time, especially with different kids with different interests. How do you draw lines for your family? And I think you and I are in different life stages on this. My kids are young, so mom and dad can tell them a little bit more what we're going to do. Your kids are older, and I know your kids had some different interests as well. How do you guys navigate through that a little bit?
Yeah, this is our life story, is making decisions on what we're going to do. Because I've got 2 kids. Jarrett, my son, is a sophomore at Wilmington College, and Charlie, my daughter, everybody knows Chucky, I think, Chuckster. She is a sophomore in high school, and they have completely different interests. I will tell you, my son has been wild about baseball since the very first time he put on a glove, and his goal for the entirety of his youth and high school experience was to be a college baseball player. And he put everything possible into playing baseball and being better at baseball and everything baseball. And he's getting that opportunity. Like I said, he is a sophomore at Wilmington playing baseball and doing a fantastic job. With that, he made the decision, and we did as a family through our conversations, that even though he loved the livestock, that couldn't be his number one priority. And so we had to be okay that there were times with Jared in particular, he wasn't as competitive in the livestock arena because he was going to try to throw it by you when he got on the baseball field, right? So every extra moment, every extra bit of money we had to throw for Jarrett went into baseball and not the livestock. It was a tough conversation, really tough conversation. It really was difficult for me because, I grew up a livestock kid. And so trying to get my head around the fact that he wasn't going to have that same passion was hard for me. And then we had to talk about the finances of it all, that, we can't put the money into paying for the Indiana Bulls and doing all the travel teams that he was a part of and buying the bats and doing all that and have really expensive livestock that don't get worked enough. And so we made that decision. When my daughter came along, she was just the opposite. For Charlie, livestock is the number one priority. That's what she thinks about. That's what she dreams about. That's all she wants to do. She's a very talented softball player, made the varsity team as a freshman. But it was always second for her, right? And so she made the decision. She wanted every bit of time, energy, money we could put into livestock for her to be that way. And if she didn't play on a travel team, she didn't swing the best bat, she didn't do all the extra lessons, that's just the decision we had to make, right? The one thing I would say, advice to families that are in a position where they have to do that, is make that decision as a family, right? We included our kids very early on and kind of laid out that, not only the expectation, but also what the trade-off was going to be. And we talked about it from a time standpoint. We talked about it from an energy standpoint. And then also, this is the difficult one for me, is just the financial resources of what it was going to cost and what was available to them. And they were a part of the conversation and helped make those decisions. And then they had buy-in from those decisions, right? Both of them still did the opposite. Jarrett still showed livestock, won his county fair with Barra. And he talked about how he loved coming to the barn because it was a place where there was no baseball pressure on him. And he could just come to the barn and walk pigs and feed pigs and brush and just kind of relax. Charlie was just the opposite. She loved to go to a softball game because she didn't have to worry about, what her pigs look like or anything. She could just go out and see how hard she could hit a ball during that time. And so it was a nice break for both of them. I'm glad they did it both, but you can't be the best at both. And trying to be the best at both is going to probably put you in an early grave.
Yeah, I had this conversation with someone at a jackpot show that we went to early in the year, and we'd had some success at that jackpot show, and the family came up and started talking to us, and they asked us, they said, how much time do you guys put into your livestock? Tell us about your routine. And I explained to them that we've made the decision to homeschool our kids, And I'm not going to say it's not purely just so that they can work livestock, but that decision has allowed them to be able to spend more time working livestock. We've made the decision with our kids so far that we've not gotten heavily involved in sports, especially not on a travel basis, because there's only 24 hours that we have in the day. And so we spend a lot of those 24 hours as a family, and especially my wife and the kids spend a lot of that time in the barn. This family that I was talking to, they commented that they played travel volleyball and that they didn't have the time to spend in the barn. And so we had a conversation about then you have to set your goals accordingly. Your goal cannot be win showmanship at a state fair or national level and play competitive volleyball on two different teams at the same time. There's only 24 hours in the day. And so I think as parents, we've got to have really honest conversations with our kids that whatever your passion is, we're going to try to do our best to help you run after that with full force. But at the same time, we've got to be realistic about the expectations that we have along the way, that we can't do it all with full effort and still expect to be competitive at all of it. That's just not how life works, right? And what I've seen in the livestock world is the families that are consistently winning the banners that a lot of us want to try to win, they're doing it as a family, and they're pouring all of their biggest resource, being time, into that project. Not that you can't be still somewhat successful. As you said, Jarrett was still able to win the county fair. He was a good showman, but he probably was not going to be able to pour all of his time and energy into livestock if he's going to be playing baseball 5 nights a week, or he was probably playing 6 or 7 days a week, there for a while. We've got to make trade-offs as a family. And so I think the difficult thing is when you have two different kids that like two different things, how do you balance that as a family? And I think you've got to set family goals and then try to run after something as a family without trying to drive you apart too, right? I think that's easy to do, that mom and one kid runs one way, dad and the other kid run the other way. I think if we're going to do this project, one of the things that we love about showing livestock is it brings us together as a family. And if we're not going to come together as a family, then we probably need to do something different, right?
We spent a lot of time, just like you just described. I mean, when the kids were younger, where, one of us was with one kid doing one thing and the other was with another kid doing the other thing. And I will tell you, the one piece of that was constant for us was, at the end of the day, whether we played a baseball game in Marion and didn't get home till 11 o'clock and the other was doing something else, livestock still had to get fed. We still had a certain amount of chores we needed to do. And that was kind of the family bonding place, right? I live in a little town of Frankton, Indiana, and the only place to get carry out from is Bernie's. So Bernie's is pretty popular around here, and the number of nights we ate Bernie's in the barn at 10:30 at night, and the kids walked pigs in their baseball or softball uniforms, and we did our chores that way. I couldn't even begin to count them. It was also my very favorite part of everything we did with the kids growing up was Bernie's in the barn on a Tuesday night after a ball game, where we were all together cleaning pens.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the great things about this livestock project, though. It just brings those families together, right? And we're gonna work at it as a family. And so I think that's the key, though, is having hard conversations with your kids. We can't do it all. We can't do it all financially. We can't do it all from a time standpoint. We got to make decisions, and then let's set appropriate goals around those decisions that we're going to make. So awesome stuff. And I wish there was an easier answer to say, clap 4 times and we get 48 hours in a day, and now we can do it all. But I just think it comes down to hard decisions that you have to make. Awesome. Next question, and we touched on this just a little bit. Nick says, your post about county fairs having too many rules is spot on, but the project cost is definitely a factor too. I'm trying to focus on the positives of participation, but it's frustrating feeling like you can't compete without spending a ton of money. What's your advice? And I think as we go back to that post that we made a few weeks ago that generated all sorts of conversation, I think what I had said was one of the factors is red tape, but you're exactly right. There's a lot of other factors involved. Cost might be another one that's very, very high up there on the list, and we all feel that things get expensive in a hurry. And so, what are some things that we need to be thinking about when we're thinking about the cost of these projects, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I get pretty sensitive to this. We're in a good spot now. I'm not going to pretend like we don't. And I mean, luckily I've got a very forgiving accountant who allows me to do as much with this as I do. But that wasn't the situation I was in growing up. I was the youngest of 3. My father passed away when we were all really young. And my mom was was a teacher at the Indiana School for the Blind. and at one point had, 2 kids in college and me trying to be a livestock showman. So every single project that I had from the time I was old enough to have a job, so when I was in high school, I paid for. So I totally get it that, I wasn't going to go buy the pigs that it took to win the county fair when I was growing up. That wasn't in the cards for me. So I completely understand that and understand the frustrations that it causes. Now, the thing that I worry about, 2 things relative to this. One is, because I wasn't able to do it, that didn't give me the right to belittle those that were. And just like we talked about the last conversation, that we made a choice about what was important to us, right? If you're a family that can do it and it's important to you and you choose to spend your resources, that's your business and nobody else's, right? If you're in a position where you can't do that, the advice that I would have to you is there are lots of things you can do that don't involve how good or bad your livestock project are. Mainly showmanship, skin and hair, the herdsmanship of livestock production. All of the lessons that we talk about, that this is the reason we do it, can all be learned with one that was not very expensive, right? And that's the situation I was in growing up. I was going to try like crazy to win showmanship, whether it be pigs or I showed a lot of sheep and a few steers. I tried like crazy to win showmanship. I tried to make sure that I was in the running. We had a herdsmanship award, so I was trying to win the herdsmanship award. And then I used what little show career I had to parlay my success in livestock judging. And that was my thing, right? And luckily I had a great ag teacher to support it. But, just because you say I can't afford one to be competitive doesn't mean that this project is not worth a tremendous amount to your family and to your children. And I think it's important we keep that in perspective as well. You made a comment before that we can either do our best to strive to do better, or we can try to make people come back to the level we are at. And I always prefer people just strive to do the very, very best that they can. And if winning the show maybe isn't in the cards for you, and it might not be, winning showmanship doesn't have to be out of the cards for you. And you can teach your kids every single lesson they need to learn with one that doesn't cost much money as much as you can one that does. And I think it's easy to lose perspective of that, right? That we are in this for the kids, and it's also none of our business what anybody spends their resources on. And somebody else's pocketbook doesn't affect your ability to teach your kids the right lessons from this project.
I always feel I'm uniquely qualified and unqualified to have this conversation because those of you that don't know, I'm a financial advisor full time. And so when you say guy that understands time value of money, wants to save money, wants to invest in things for the long term, livestock projects are expensive, and what do we have to show for it at the end? A purple banner that's $12, hopefully, if everything went right, And so I always say, with that at the backdrop, we've still made a decision as a family that whatever budget we commit to, we think it's worth it for our kids. And if that budget's not very large, I think that's okay too. We've got to decide, is the project only worth doing if we can win, or are there other reasons to participate in the livestock project? And I think there's other reasons to participate in the livestock project. Learning discipline, learning to take care of animals, learning a commitment to a project, seeing something through, working with friends, working with your family members, and then, learning about nutrition and hard work and all these great things that we see in the livestock industry are not from spending dollars on it. And I think, I hear people talk about all the time, you learn more from losing than you do from winning. And man, we lose a whole lot more in this game than we ever win. And I will tell you, we get a whole lot better when we lose as people. We get better as stockmen, I think, as well, and we adjust along the way. But, I don't think losing is a bad thing, and saying we're not going to participate because we can't win that particular banner, I just don't think is a good mindset to have. Similar situation, well, a little different situation, I guess, from the standpoint growing up. My parents, we had a split home, and so my mom was a college professor, and so a lot of the project I also had to pay for, right? And so my brother and I would do it. We wouldn't put very many on feed. I would focus on showmanship a lot. I'd focus on skin and hair a lot. We were still blessed to be able to win our county fair twice during my time, just because we spent the time to find the right ones that fit our budget, and we'd feed one or two of them for the year at very base bid prices, and we'd work our tails off in order to be able to get to that point. And the other thing that we did then is we'd spend time going around for our livestock auction and soliciting some bids from local businesses, going in and educating them on the project we were doing, telling them about supporting in the way that they could get involved in our livestock premium sale that we'd have there at the county fair. We'd use that money to then purchase our project the next year. And so kind of taught me some salesmanship skills, I guess, along the way, taught me to speak to some adults, and going around doing it. And we didn't have a huge budget in order to be in this industry. And like I said, we still found a little bit of success. We probably never won the big banner that I dreamed of as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, but I learned a whole lot along the way. And so I think there's value in the project outside of the $10 purple banner that somebody can win at the end of the day.
Yeah, I will tell you that being involved with livestock has been the greatest thing I've done for myself, both personally and professionally. And a lot of that was livestock judging, not just showing. But in all my years myself, one time did I win a class with a pig at the county fair. One time I won one class, right? And I would tell you that every job I've got, most of the contacts that I've made in this business, the things I've been able to do for myself because of this, nobody one time has went back and asked me, now, how many times did you win your county fair? Right? Not one time. I remember my kids, when we first won, we had a crossbred bear named Javi, that I talk about all the time. When he won the county fair, my daughter turned to me and said, Dad, how many times did you win the county fair? Because I never have. This is the very first county fair champion I've ever stood behind. Right. And I don't think I learned any less or got any less from that project than anybody that did. And it was just, we chose to put all the resources in it we could, and those resources weren't very big. The one thing that I do see in comments that I got to be honest, I don't want to start any more of a fight than maybe what we did with our earlier comments, but I see these comments about, tell those people that sell those pigs, hey, those folks do that for a living, right? And the value is what the value is, right? And I don't think it's right to blame breeders for the value of livestock. Nor do I think anybody that says, tell those feed companies feed's too expensive. I've been in the feed business and I know what the margins are on that, and they're not making a lot of money there either, right? So I think this idea that there are people to blame for it, I think doesn't really strike true to me, okay? I think what you should do is figure out what resources you have to allow, what your goals can be realistically based on your resources, and go out and capitalize on what you can do with your project. And if you do that, nobody is taking anything away from you, right? But the idea that there's somebody to blame for what this industry's or what this livestock project has become, I don't think that's fair.
I think it is easy to sit back and say these things are too expensive. You shouldn't charge that for them. And I guess the alternative is, I guess my question is always, what's the alternative? They're putting them up for sale in a public marketplace. People are willingly choosing to spend the money on them. What's the breeder supposed to say? Please don't give me that money. I'm going to, give them away to the first person that brings me $150. Like it doesn't work that way, right? And life doesn't work that way, unfortunately. But I don't think that means that you should just not do the project, right? And there's all kinds of like we've started showing some goats, right? And that's not a project that I know a ton about. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. But my goal starting out is not to go win the state fair goat show, right? And so I'm setting realistic goals with the knowledge budget that we have and the financial budget that we have to say, his goal this year for showmanship was to go win showmanship in the goat ring. And that was all our goal was for the year, was to have a good time and win showmanship. And he worked hard at it. Had some good success from a showmanship standpoint. Our goal was not to go win the Indiana State Fair Goat Show year one with our limited knowledge and resources that we were going to put into that project, right? And so I think as a family, let's set goals that teach values, that teach your kids, that help your kids grow and be better people long-term for life. It doesn't have to be just grand champion overall at whatever show you're going to. That's maybe the end of my soapbox, and maybe we'd love to hear your feedback on that, right, guys? And
we're going to get it. We're definitely going to get the feedback, which we love.
Yeah, no, we do, because here's the thing. I think all of us come from different areas and different walks of life in different parts of the country, and I've loved reading the comments under the videos where some people have some awesome county fair ideas on how to make things better. There's a lot of examples of things that don't work so well also in our comments. So continue to leave them to us. Continue to send us your questions as you guys have them. We think that this is an awesome project. We've chosen to raise our kids in it for a reason.
Yeah, I will tell you that I had a conversation with a couple extension agents during our state fair, and the one thing that they kept coming back to, and I think it's a very fair point, one, they don't make all the rules that they're probably forced to enforce, and so you got to kind of take it easy on some of those folks. Sometimes they are, in fact, just the messenger. The other thing they said is more often than not, when someone's upset, they don't want to volunteer, they want to be in charge, right? And I think there's a way that we can be involved and volunteer and try to, the rising tide raises all boats. And I think too often we get upset and we see things from our narrower perspective and we decide, I should be in charge of this and I would do this. And in reality, these things at the county fair level are still very much community, and it should be, we can collectively improve this in a certain way. And I think if we carry that attitude into it, with a little bit of the heart of a servant, more so than the mouth of a dictator, I think we probably could get our point across and improve things for everybody a little easier than what we are. And I had a couple extension agents made that point to me, and I think it's a fair one and one that is worth bringing up.
Yeah, I mean, we try to do that at our house, right? My wife's really good about encouraging our kids to go find a way to be a blessing to somebody, right? Same thing at your county fair. If you're frustrated by what's going on there, go find a way to be a blessing to your county fair board by volunteering, and maybe try to understand why things are the way they are, and then slowly suggest changes as you get involved. But saying I'm not getting involved and yelling about things you want to change, probably not an effective way to go about it.
Very good. Very good. I do have one more thing. Just want to point out here, you can see my hat here. It's not great grammar, so your mother might comment.
I'm sure she will.
But this right here is something I found online. And for those of you guys who know, we've talked about it on here a while. The livestock community, and I refer to this as a community and not an industry. Community's taking it tough. A lot of people have really, really struggled. And unfortunately, we've lost some folks that we just shouldn't have. This was a fundraiser that I know Maddie Caldwell was a part of, and I'm not for sure who else. This was Eves and Company, but they had this merch store, and this says, "You are not alone." And so I love wearing this, and I wear it to every livestock show I go to. You are not alone. So I want you to know, I thought Will Hilty's comments during the Grand Drive at the State Fair were very poignant as well, that we need you. We need more people. We need to be inclusive within this business. We need more folks wanting to do it and not less. And I want you to know that if you're struggling with something, you are not alone. Just reach out, speak up, because we can't, as a community, we can't afford to lose anybody else. So just want to give a shout out. I know Maddie Caldwell was involved. I'm not sure who else, but it's EAVES and Company, EAVESANDCO.com. And I know they got a Facebook page if you want to get involved with this. I think it's a pretty worthwhile cause.
Awesome. I think that wraps up our questions, guys. Let us know what else we can answer for you. Enjoy talking to you when we see you out and getting all the questions that we do in person. Send them to us. We'll do our best to get them answered for you.
To the front, baby.
To the Front has been brought to you by TTF Nutrition. Livestock supplements that get you to the front.